Hello, boys and girls. Today is our first reading lesson from Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. Again, I just want to remind you that this is a memoir written in verse. A memoir, if you remember from a few lessons ago, is a memory written by the author from that author's life, and they're telling you how they felt, and it's written in first person. It's their experience. And verse means that it is written in stanzas. It is poetry. It is not written in paragraphs. So verse is associated with poetry and stanzas. Now, the first two poems that you're going to be reading are Brooklyn Rain and Another Way. So I would like you to get your My Perspectives book in front of you, and I would like you to open up to page number 12. That is where we're going to start today. If you need to pause the video to get your book, please do. So on page 12, this little box at the bottom here, it talks about your first read. Now, we suggest your first read is just that. You're reading or listening to the story and you're not doing anything else. But when you do your second read, the strategies on this page can be very helpful for you. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is this annotate box. This is where you're going to circle or underline key vocabulary or passages that maybe you want to revisit or that you don't understand. Maybe they're written differently in different print than the rest of the poem. Then you might want to write in the margin or even underline or circle whom the story is about, what happens in the story, where and when the story happens, and maybe why those individuals in the story react the way they do. And finally, you want to connect ideas within the selection to what you already know and what you have read. So these are all things that you can be underlining and circling, as well as writing little notes in the margin. I also want you to think about when you are writing notes in the margin, you want to start using phrases such as I noticed, or I wonder, I think, or I'm surprised that, or I'm not sure. Those are ways for you to interact with your text. So let's look at a small section of Brooklyn Rain and annotating that could possibly happen and you probably should do in your book. So the first one I want to point out is the purple no. The no is highlighted in purple. Now, I don't suggest using highlighters because they have a tendency to bleed through the paper. But if you don't press hard or don't go over them a lot, then a highlighter could possibly be used. Underlining and circling is better. But if we look in this purple box on the side, it tells you that the annotation or the highlighting is of the word no because it repeats. And the question that this reader could write in the margin is, why does Woodson repeat the word no? Then you need to answer your own question that you write there. So I want you to finish reading and then think about possible reasons to answer the question that you wrote. In this case, the reader wrote the repetition or the repeated use of no emphasizes the ways in which Woodson's life in Brooklyn is different from her life in Greenville. Now, the other annotation on this page is this yellow-orange highlight. And if you look up here in this top box, the annotator, the highlighting of this is because these phrases, all three of these phrases, appeal to senses of smell and touch. So a possible question that a reader could write on their page is, why does Woodson use language that appeals to the senses? And then again, the reader needs to respond to their question. You're predicting or making some kind of a conclusion about why this is being used. And in this case, the reader wrote, these phrases create images for readers of how Woodson experienced the rain in Greenville. So there is a little example, and I strongly suggest maybe pausing the video and adding these annotations to your story in your book. This is a great way for you to start. So now let's just look at the background information about Jacqueline Woodson before you actually start reading. And this is on page 13 of your book, right underneath the picture. And follow along as I read it. Background. As a child in the 1960s, Jacqueline Woodson moved with her family from Greenville, South Carolina, to Brooklyn in New York City. Her memoir, Brown Girl Dreaming, tells of her childhood experiences growing up in both places. In a memoir, an author recalls important events in his or her life. Brown Girl Dreaming is unique as a memoir because it is written in verse or as poetry. Again, that verse means we use stanzas. That's how poetry is written. So now your assignment that you're going to do for this lesson is listed here on this slide. The very first thing you're going to do is read or listen to Brooklyn Rain. This is located on pages 13 and 14 of your My Perspectives book. I have downloaded the audio recording of the poems to the Google Classroom assignment. So that gives you the option to listen to it and follow along. But the first time you're going to read it once through fully without annotating. You're just going to maybe get the wheels in your brain moving and thinking about what you're reading about. Then you're going to read or listen to Brooklyn Rain a second time. And this time you're going to annotate the poem. This is where you're going to circle words that you don't know, or bolded words, or italicized words. You're going to underline things that stand out to you, and you're going to write your notes on the side of the poem. And this is a good time to maybe look at details that the author uses to emphasize certain words or phrases, such as a repetition. And then when you're formulating your question or your notes for the side margin, I want you to consider what those details might tell you. For example, what can you infer from the word no in lines 2 and 3 and the word watch in the lines 6, 8, and 10? Those are notes that you'll write in the side of your margin. Once you're done reading Brooklyn Rain, we would like you to turn to page 19 in your book, and you're going to answer question number 1. The answer for this question, as well as some of your annotating work, is also going to go on a Google Doc. Now, when you're done with that, you're going to go to your second poem, which is Another Way, and this is located on pages 14 and 15. Again, you can read or listen to the poem, but the first time you do it, we just want you to listen to it fully without annotating. You're just getting those brain wheels moving and thinking about what's going on in this poem. Then the second time you read or listen to Another Way, this is when you're going to be annotating the poem. Again, you're looking for words that are in bold print, that dark print, or italicized, that like slanted kind of writing, because that's different than how we normally would write. You're looking for repetition of words or quotations where people maybe are talking. And then you're going to mark your thoughts in the margin. This is again where your thinking is going down on paper. So once you're done reading and listening to both of the poems and you've done your annotating and you've answered question number 1 on page 19 of your book, you're going to go back into the Google Class assignment and you're going to complete this Google document for Brown Girl Dreaming Reading 1. which is on Brooklyn Rain and Another Way. So the author is your name here. And then for number 1, from Brooklyn Rain, we want you to write at least 3, which means you have to have 3, but you could have more, bullets below sharing your annotated notes that you wrote on the side of your poem. And you're going to include your connection or why it was important to you. So these are the things that you're gonna write in the side margin of your poem as you're annotating. Number 2 is the question from page 19, number 1. In Brooklyn Rain, what does Woodson's mother say? And you're just gonna write your answer here next to the bullet. And then finally, number 3, from Another Way, you're going to write at least 3 bulleted points. Again, you have to have 3, but you could have more. You cannot have less. And these bullet points are going to be the words or phrases that you circled or underlined or highlighted. And again, you need to include why you circled or highlighted that item. Once you have finished this document, go back into the Google assignment and turn it in.